What up, you fluffy bastards? My name is Liquid Blitz, and today we're going to take a look at how the different weapon variants affect your gameplay. Things like Trench and Storm and Optical and so on. We're going to look in detail, in hyper, super detail at the differences between them all. So let's jump right into it. Now, before we take a look at each individual type, we need to hash out a few details, a few definitions, so you can understand everything as we move forward. First of all, we have recoil. Now, recoil, everyone knows what recoil is. Recoil is the backwards momentum of your gun after firing. And technically speaking, the recoil is, it exactly balances the forward momentum of the bullet. It balances each other out. That's why recoil is a thing. Next, we have spread. Now, spread's a tricky one. Lots of people have different definitions for spread. But spread is basically the calculated or sometimes often random inaccuracy that's introduced for each shot of your weapon, regardless of where you're actually aiming. It's like a calculated inaccuracy. Now, this is increased if you're in order. The spread is worst when you're moving and hip firing, and then standing, and then crouching, and finally prone. I mean, for example, sniper rifles have 0 spread when you're stood still, which is why they're so accurate. And finally, a term that some people use, but not everyone, bloom. Bloom is simply the increase in spread as you continue firing. Anyway, now we've got those definitions out of the way. They're sort of important, they're nice to know. Now we've got those out of the way, we're going to take a look at individual variants for individual classes. But before we do that, before I look at like support and shotguns and scout rifles and so on, I'm going to look at the general ones, the general variants that appear in every class. First of all, we have factory. Now, as I said, factory is in every class, and I'm going to keep referring back to factory, so pay attention to this. Factory weapons recover from recoil and spread faster than any other type. That's the bonus of using a factory weapon. And all factory weapons have iron sights, which is part of why they recover so fast. And in my opinion, because they recover faster than any other type, they're excellent for burst fire, because think about it, if you burst, stop, the recoil goes down faster and spread reduces faster. So in my opinion, they're better for sort of bursting at sort of close to medium range. And secondly, we have Trench. Now, Trench, I think Trench is in most classes. Trench is my favourite because I'm a noob. Basically, Trench, quite simply, more accurate hip fire. Done. Next on the list is Storm, which is another favourite of mine. I love me a good Storm weapon. Storm weapons, basically, their strength is that they have less recoil than other variants. Simple as that, less recoil, but they also only have an iron sight. They don't have any sort of telescopic sight or lens sight or anything. And because of that, I think they make best close to medium range weapons if you're aiming a lot. So if you hip fire a lot, Trench weapons, but if you're aiming close to medium range, I would say go with the Storm version. Now, the reason I say Storm versions are good for close to medium range while aiming down sight is because if you're wanting to go more sort of medium to long range, you go with the Optical, which is the next one. The strength of the Optical sight is they have less spread, which is better than less recoil for longer ranges. And on top of that, the Opticals literally have an optical sight. They have a lens sight. So if you prefer medium to long ranges, go with an Optical. And finally, the last weapon variant I believe that's in multiple classes is the extended. I don't think there's many of them, but the extended versions basically, quite simply, have a larger magazine capacity. It's as simple as that. Now let's move on to the more class-specific weapon variants. Let's start with the shotgun. Now, I don't really use shotguns because I don't like not having a medium sort of range capability. But anyway, I'm going to look at everything. So anyway, let's start off with shotguns. First thing is the slug variant. Now, there's only one, I believe. There's only one slug variant. But a slug pellet, I believe, I'm not an expert in weapons by any measure, but a slug pellet is one single pellet. A regular shotgun or buckshot spreads many pellets in many directions. That's why shotguns have such a large spread with one shot. But a slug round is one single pellet, which makes the slug shotgun basically it fires a single more accurate round, and it's as simple as that. But it does mean if you miss, you're kind of fucked. You've got to be much more accurate with the slug variant. Now, the second one is Hunter. Now, this is a favourite among a lot of people, and I understand why, because the Hunter basically has less spread, has a tighter spread, which gives it a more effective range. The actual damage drop range isn't anymore, but because it's more accurate, it has a better effective range. If you see the difference there. Next on the shotgun list is backboard. Now these have less recoil, so they're easier to sort of control with sustained shots, but they have a lower range. Unfortunately, that's the negative. And finally, on the shotguns, we have the sweeper. Now again, I think there's only one sweeper shotgun, but it's quite a unique weapon. It basically has more spread, so it's actually it's less accurate for longer ranges. It has more spread, but it has a very high close range damage. But the negative is that the damage drop-off is very short, so it has a very small range, but up close, the damage and spread is enormous. So in other words, the sweeper is excellent for very close range fighting. Now let's move on to medic. The medic shares a couple of variants, like I think it's marksman and sniper, with the scout class, but they actually do slightly different things to the scout versions. First of all, we have Marksman, which simply has less spread and a medium zoom scope, which goes up to 4 times, I believe. Pretty standard, it's just a pretty accurate weapon. And then we have the sniper version. There's only one sniper in the medic class, and that's the Mondragon sniper. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Mondragon sniper, which is basically the same. It has less spread than other variants. It has a medium range scope again, but it has a bipod, which makes it even more accurate when you set the bipod up. And between you and me, the Mondragon sniper is, well, and the Mondragon in general is probably my favourite weapon in the medic class, but I'll save my favourite weapons for classes for another video. And finally in the medic we have the sweeper, which is different to the shotgun version of the sweeper. That's why I've included them both. The medic sweeper weapon has less upwards recoil, but not left and right recoil, which is kind of odd. It has less upwards recoil, and it has less hip spread, which means it's quite good for firing from the hip. Now let's move on to support weapons. The first in this list is low weight, the low weight variant. Now this is basically exactly the same as factory. Iron sights and it recovers from recoil faster. Simple as that. Second on the list is suppressive. Now suppressive is quite a unique thing. Suppressive have a larger magazine size and a bipod, and when you put that bipod down it becomes very accurate. It has a much tighter spread, which, surprise surprise, makes it very good for suppressing enemies. And finally, for the support weapons, we have telescopic. I think this is the last unique one for support. And it's basically the same as suppressive, except it has a medium-range scope on it. It has a bipod, and it has less spread and bloom. It's just slightly even more accurate than the suppressive version, which makes it great for medium ranges. That's it for support. Anyway, let's take a look at scout weapons now. First of all, we have the infantry variant. Now, the infantry variant, again, is pretty much the same as factory. It has iron sights, and it recovers from recoil and spread faster. So it's great for sort of running and gunning. Next for scout, we have marksman, which is very similar to the medic version of marksman. You basically have a medium zoom scope. It has less spread in general, which makes it more accurate than, say, the infantry version. And it can hold breath longer. Now, that's a unique thing. It holds breath longer than all the other variants, including sniper. And finally, for the marksman, apparently, and I don't know this for sure, but apparently the marksman uniquely has no scope glint, whereas the sniper does, obviously. So that's if that's true, that's a real good strength for using a marksman weapon. Then we have the sniper variant for the scout class. Now, who doesn't love a good sniper weapon for the scout class? The sniper variants have 0 spread when you're still. That's what makes them so damn accurate. Not only that, they have a high zoom scope which goes up to 10 times, which is epic, frankly. And of course, they have a bipod, just to make it even more accurate. And finally, we have the carbine, or carbine, however you choose to pronounce it. Now, the carbine, has better hipfire all round, and it has less spread while you're moving, not while you're stationary, but while you're moving. And it uses general ring sights, which are like a step up from iron sights. So, in my opinion, carbine are better for literally... I said infantry was good for running and gunning. Carbine's even better, because it's much more accurate for firing while you're moving. So if you want to use a scout class sort of in the hottest zones where all hell is breaking loose, I'd suggest you use a carbine weapon. Now that we've covered all the sort of main classes, you probably noticed I've missed a couple, and that's the experimental weapon variant. Now there's an experimental in the assault class, and there's one in the scout class, I think. Yeah, I've written these down because I'll never remember these ones. The first one is the MP18 experimental in the assault class. Now that has a 3-round burst, which is unique. I don't think there's any other weapon that has burst fire. It has, strangely, it has less left and right recoil, but not upwards recoil. Now, I don't know why that would be, but because it has less left and right recoil, you might actually want to switch the recoil direction to left and right, which I never do. I always put it on center, but for this one, you might want to put it left and right and have a play about with it. It has a better first shot spread, so its first shot is very accurate, which again is quite unique. I've never read that of any other weapon. One downside to this weapon is it does have a slower reload when the weapon is empty, which is, it's not that much of a downside, but hey. Anyway, moving on. The second experimental weapon is in the Scout class, and it's the M1903 experimental. Now, this one is semi-automatic, but it uses pistol ammo, which means the damage is much, much lower. But it means it has a massive mag size. I think it has a mag size of 41, I think, which is enormous for a sniper. Generally speaking, because it has such a massive mag size and it does so much lower damage, it means the fire rate is enormous. It has the fastest... In fact, I've written it down here. It's faster than any other medic or scout rifle. So there you go. Obviously, the downside is it shoots pistol bullets, so it has much lower damage. But it seems generally balanced. And one final point for that experimental weapon is apparently it has a much better recoil spread than other scout rifles. And it needs to. If you're sustaining fire with many, many rounds of pistol bullets, it needs a better recoil. And that's all I've got for you. I'm done. So I hope you found this interesting or sort of useful at the very least. I've probably made a mistake or missed something because I'm shit. I always miss something. So I've probably missed a weapon variant somewhere or something. If I have, just let me know down in the comments below, or if I've made a mistake, which I probably have, just correct me in the comments below. Like this video if you liked it, like this video if you didn't like it, and join me next time. I've got no idea what my next video will be, but join me then. Was that smile a bit too camp at the end there?
It's our best option, and you know it. Hell, it's our only option.
You want to sacrifice a little girl?
Conrad, I'm not doing this. You want to shoot me? Shoot me.
How about I shoot your little boyfriend here instead?
What the fuck, Conrad?
Nobody has to shoot anybody.